Part 314. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3139. The mammy and the maid, who had been standing obediently, immediately stepped forward, but they stretched out their hands and did not dare to hug them, so Madame Wen stepped forward and squeezed them away, took the scissors, and cut the umbilical cord nimbly, and picked up the child. Passed. Zhou Man handed over the child to them, turned around and started to clean up the tired Mingda, and smiled with her, "It's a boy." Mingda almost cried, and said in a choked voice, "I know, you told me 4 months ago." Zhou Man smiled and narrowed his eyes. Just at this moment, Madame Wen patted the child. He suddenly suffered from pain, and cried loudly. The people waiting outside suddenly became lively. "I was born, I was born." The mammy and the maids also stopped their work excitedly, squatted down to salute together, and shouted happily, "Congratulations to the princess, Xiao Lang is safe and healthy." Yeah, listen to how bright this voice is, it's full of energy, and it's healthy to hear it. Mammy was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. Seeing that Zhou Man was taking the pulse of the princess, she made everyone quiet down. As soon as she retracted her hand, she asked, "How is the princess?" Zhou Man smiled and said, "Mother and son are safe." Mammy was completely relieved, and quickly supported Zhou Man and said, "Master Zhou, go and rest, you are really tired tonight." She asked the maid to stay to take care of the princess, and she personally helped Zhou Man out. Bai Erlang was standing at the door looking at his son with a silly smile. Seeing Zhou Man, he waved at her, "Come over here and see, isn't my child particularly good looking?" Bai Shan and Yin Or even said they were not good looking. Bai Shan and Yin Or, who stood on the left and the right, blocking the entire door to prevent a shred of wind from entering, when did they say this? They were just pragmatic and refused to go along with what he said that the child was white and good looking. How can a child who has just been born be white and good looking? Zhou Man also probed to look. She didn't look carefully just now. Now that she looks at it, she thinks that this child is very good, so noisy, and she clenched her fists and slept soundly. This is a bit like Bai Erlang. Zhou Man frowned slightly when he thought of this, when he was sleeping, when he couldn't open his eyes, right? Bai Erlang felt that Zhou Man's gaze at him was a little threatening, so he hugged the child and squeezed into the house, and the mammy immediately exclaimed, "Master consort, you can't enter the delivery room, it's unlucky." "What's so unlucky?" "I don't believe this, but I might be dirty. For the princess' safety, I won't enter. I'll wait in the outer room, don't worry." Bai Erlang hugged the child and sat on the chair in the outer room. His hands were still a little stiff, and he didn't dare to put it down. He asked, "Is the princess asleep? Do you want to eat? Is she still in pain? Do you want to take medicine?" Zhou Man turned around and left, and said to Bai Shan, "Let's go back, I'm tired." Okay, Bai Shan supported her. After going out, she saw Zhenggu and Cao Yuxu and Wei Man who were waiting outside. She nodded and said, "Leave one, wait for the princess to wake up, go in and check the pulse, and go to the doctor's office to confirm that everything is fine." The three saluted at the same time, "Yes." At this time, it was already slightly bright, and there were people getting up early to stand outside. Zhou Man simply walked back with Bai Shan, and the two of them ate a bowl of wontons on the way. As soon as he entered the house, Zhou Man stopped, and Bai Shan, who was supporting her, looked at her suspiciously. "What's wrong?" Zhou Man supported his waist and said, I'm going to give birth." Bai Shan's expression was blank for a moment, then when he came back to his senses, he turned his head and called out Daji calmly. Daji hurried forward. "Go to the princess mansion and ask the two women to come, as well as the mother and sister-in-law, and let them come back. Well, don't disturb the princess." Daji left in response, and Bai Shan then instructed Zibing and Julan, go and prepare, and let the kitchen boil hot water. Bai Shan supported Zhou Man and found that her face was pale, so he calmed down and picked her up, and went to the delivery room they prepared step by step. Zibing hurriedly followed, and lifted the quilt to let Bai Shan put the person down. Zhou Man also came back to his senses, adjusted his breathing, and held back the pain. It's no big deal, my fetal position is also correct, you go out first, and wait for Granny Wen to come. Bai Shan sat on the side, and touched her stomach with a trembling hand, I'll wait with you. The two houses are not far away, not to mention that the people there are ready-made, and everyone arrived quickly. Mrs. Jian and Mrs. Zheng broke in with Granny Wen, immediately dragged Bai Shan up and pushed them out, and then began to work on Zhou Man. Zhou Man is a doctor herself, with a wealth of theoretical knowledge. She has also done prenatal training, so she just panicked. After seeing Xiao Jian and so many people, her heart instantly calmed down. Before Granny Wen could speak, she asked, how much is the opening of the palace? Knowing that it was too early, he said, I felt a little flustered and lacked strength, so I asked someone to cook the brown sugar water for me. I must be tired. I will take a break. Granny Wen hurriedly asked, did your lord eat? You can't do it if you don't have the strength. I just ate a bowl of wontons. I'm not hungry, but it will take a while to build strength. I should have been frightened just now, wait for me to relax. Without waiting for Granny Wen's command, she took a deep breath in an orderly manner. Xiao Jian went to the kitchen to cook a bowl of brown sugar water for her. After Zhou Man drank it, he found the most suitable posture for production, and then took a deep breath to relax while enduring the pain. Stable mothers, but it is too worry-free, they are useless in an instant. Zhou Man's childbirth was also very smooth. Although she felt that the pain was beyond her own understanding, in the eyes of everyone, she still gave birth very smoothly, and she didn't need them to worry about it. She gave birth herself. Even after she was born, she didn't even have the strength to speak. Xiao Jian and Zheng have long known that she is carrying a daughter, and the child will be cleaned immediately after birth. Zheng was not willing to spank her, so she patted her lightly, but the child did not say anything. Xiao Jian was startled, so he quickly took another shot, and when the child hummed, he felt relieved, healthy and healthy. The spanking of the child, of course, is not to hear her cry, but to make sure that her voice is fine and healthy. Mother Wen cleaned and wrapped the child and handed it to Mrs. Zheng. Zheng she held the child a little rusty, her eyes crooked with laughter, I'm a grandmother. Bai Shan was lying on the window, trying to look in through the gap in the window, mother, Man Bao and the child are all right. It's okay, mother and daughter are safe, everything is fine. When Bai Shan heard this, his mouth couldn't help but grin, his whole body was about to stick to the window, and he shouted, Mother, I want to see the child, can you take it out and show it to me? It is impossible to carry it out. Although it is bright now, it is still a little cold outside. How can the child go out to dry? So he can only watch from the outer room. Good night, go to bed early. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 3140. Bai Shan changed into a clean set of clothes, and when she came in with her baby in her arms, Zhou Man had already packed up and was leaning on the bed eating porridge. She didn't have the appetite to eat anything else now. Seeing the child, she immediately put down the bowl and waved again and again, let me take a look. Bai Shan hugged her up and showed her, look, is our daughter whiter than Bai Er's son? Really? Zhou Man squinted, looked at Bai Shan and then looked down at his daughter, affirming, like you. Bai Shan pursed his lips and said softly, I've made up my mind. In the future, her eyes, forehead, and mouth should be like yours, and her nose will be like mine. That's the best look. And skin like you, it's hard for you to get a tan, and girls look better when they're white. Bai Shan nodded, the ears should also be like mine. The two discussed and decided on the parts of their daughter's head. Zheng Shi, who was on the side, was speechless for a while. Can this child grow up according to their ideas? She stepped forward to look at the baby in the swaddle, and seeing that she moved her mouth and body, she immediately patted Bai Shan and said in a low voice, "Be softer, don't wake her up." She thought of something, and quickly asked Zhou Man, "Do you have milk now? Do you want to call the nurse?" "No," Zhou Man said, "I have something to eat. If I don't feel it, I will ask my sister-in-law to boil milk soup for me in a while." Mrsgn brought up a bowl of fish soup. "It's already cooked, do you want to taste it?" Zhou Man hummed softly, "I don't want to drink greasy things now." "It's not greasy, it's fish soup, not chicken soup." Little Qian brought it to her. The light yellow clear soup should be the medicine packet she prescribed. After thinking about it, she took a sip, and the mouth was filled with herbal flavors, but she soon tasted the fishy flavor. After a while, she thought it was not bad, so she drank it all. Bai Shan has been busy since the middle of the night and hasn't drank a sip of water. Seeing her eating so deliciously, he couldn't help swallowing, and then his stomach rumbled impolitely. He lowered his hand holding the child slightly, covering his stomach with the child, and his earlobes were a little red. Zhou Man just felt full after a bowl of soup, so he took the child and gave him half a bowl of porridge on the table next to him. "You can eat it." Bai Shan took it and ate it, and Zheng Shi looked at him with a look of condemnation. "Bai Shan, mother, Man Bao is full." Zhou Man nodded again and again, "Yes, I'm full, mother, sister-in-law, you've been busy all night and you're hungry, right? Go and eat." Zheng Shi reluctantly looked at the child in her arms. Xiao Qian responded with a smile and pulled Zheng away. "Man Bao will definitely have to make up for her sleep in a while. Then we will watch her baby by the side, and we will have the strength to eat first." Mrs. Zheng felt that what she said was reasonable, so she went to have brunch with Mrs. Jian. Zhou Man and Bai Shan looked at the child, and they really felt sleepy. Seeing that the child was sleeping soundly, they put him beside him. She also lay down to sleep. Seeing that Bai Shan's eyes were a little blue, they said, "You two go to sleep, I didn't sleep much last night." "Well, you go to bed first, and I'll watch her for a while." Zhou Man fell into a drowsy sleep on the pillow. She was tired, sleepy, and still in pain last night. Now her body is relaxed, and she fell into a deep sleep after a while. Bai Shan sat by the bed and looked at the big and small. His face couldn't help but smile, his face was gentle. He reached out and touched the child's cheek with his fingertips, and found that it was soft and smooth, more tender than the tenderest tofu he had ever eaten. This time, Bai Shan felt that the name he gave her didn't seem so good. So when Zhou Man was woken up by the child, and she hurriedly got up to feed the child, Bai Shan sat outside the tent and said to her with a serious face, "I've decided, the child's name needs to be changed." Zhou Mandu didn't care about being shy. He slightly opened a corner of the tent, and asked with an "Ah, change it to what?" "Change to Jingxing, by Jingxing." Zhou Man blinked and tilted his head to look at him. "The high mountains will stop, and Jingxing will stop." Bai Shan grinned, "Yes." Zhou Man only twisted and said happily, "I don't have any opinion, I'm afraid that the teacher thinks we are too complacent." Bai Shan waved his hand and said, "It's not bad either. Our daughter is so good looking. In the future, whether she is wise or virtuous, she will definitely be a top performer. What's wrong with a good name?" Bai Shan looked at his infant daughter tenderly across the tent, and said softly, "I want her to know what we expect from her in the future." Bai Erlang also named his son early in the morning. As soon as he was born, after confirming that it was a boy, he liked to mention a name. But he just wrote it down, and he had to give him a nickname to be pressed down, and the big name would have to wait for a bigger name to be used, at least 1 year old. Because Joe Man was there, the two families knew the gender of the child early, and the name was also based on the gender. Bai Erlang flipped through a lot of books, discussed with Mingda for a long time, and finally took the word Ruyu from a bunch of names. Like Miu, its meaning is better than the honesty his father gave him. He also hugged his son and said with a smile, "Son, you were born 2 hours earlier than your cousin, you will be a brother in the future, but you must be smarter than her, and you will worship the same teacher in the future. You want to be a senior brother, do you know?" "Mingda, what are you teaching your children?" "I'm teaching him the big truth in life." Bai Erlang carefully hugged his well-fed son, and asked his mother, "Is it all right, so that I won't be able to burp and return to milk?" "Yes." Mammy smiled until her eyes were bent. She stepped aside and said, "Father consort, put the child down when he is asleep, don't get used to it, or you will be squeamish in the future." Bai Erlang carefully placed the child on the cot according to the instructions of the mama, and let out a long breath. "He is too soft, too scary." Just as he was talking, the maid who went to the county office to deliver things came over and said, "Master Joe is awake and healthy. He just woke up and was breastfeeding." At this time, everyone is watching the child. He continued, "Master Bai has given the young master a name. It is taboo to Jingxing, and her nickname will be eldest sister. Let's call it a nickname in the future." Bai Erlang was stunned. "Why did you change the name? Isn't this what they chose before?" Mingda smiled and said, "This name is good, the mountains are upright, and the scenery is seeing. Virtue is like high mountains people admire, virtue is like Dao people follow. We are all mortals, however, although we can't reach it, our hearts yearn for it." It seems that the eldest sister, she was born very well. Bai Shan and Manbao must have changed their names because they didn't want to wrong her. The palace maid immediately smiled and said, "No, the princess didn't see it, that child is very good looking, although she was born not long ago, but her face is white, the servant has seen so many children, she is such a good looking little girl who was born." Lady. Bai Erlang became curious when he heard this, and wanted to go over and take a look. "Really? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3141. Really, the palace maid couldn't hold back, "It's even whiter than our little son. It is said that children born early are whiter, after all, they have to fade red and wrinkled." Bai Erlang couldn't hold back and ran to the backyard of the county government to see. Yin Ori was also there, and when he saw him, he smiled and said, "I was going to find you. I got a piece of jade, and it's not bad. I'll have someone cut it out and make 2 pieces of jade pendant for children to press clothes. It's my full moon gift to them." The 2 children are too coincidental. Although one was born in the early morning and the other was born after the sun rose, there was a difference of 2 hours between them, but they were indeed born on the same day. The 3 washes are on the same day, and the natural full moon is also on the same day. Bihai County became lively, and the 3 and the full moon were washed. The guests first went to the princess mansion, then turned around and went to the backyard of the county government office. However, there were not many people invited by Mingda, Bai Erlang, Zizan, and Man Yu. Except for Bai Shan and Yin Or, there were only 3 or 4 people who were familiar here. Many people didn't post, and only sent gifts to the house. Most of Bai Erlang asked people to return them, leaving only some less expensive gifts. Because Bai Shan is the county magistrate and Zhou Man is the department magistrate, so many people come. However, they were all in the front yard, and Zhou Man didn't want too many people to watch the children together, so he didn't see many guests in the backyard. As for the child, she didn't take it out, She pushed it away on the pretext of being afraid of the child's cold. Bai Erlang ran over to join in the fun, touched a handful of beans and asked her, "Why don't you take the child out and see? There are too many people here, and some people come from Leizhou, Qingzhou, and they may have external evils on their bodies. At this time, the children are delicate, so it is better to go out less. Moreover, there is a smell of fat powder on the female family members, which she smells when there are many people. I'm choking my nose, let alone a child." Shirojiro thought about it too. Compared with the lively front yard, the backyard is a little quieter here. Joe Man put the child on the cradle, swayed gently with one foot, and took out the materials in the drawer to see. After Bai Erlang finished eating the beans in his hand, he clapped his hands and stood up. "I'm going back to see my son. Do you have anything to say to Mingda?" Joe Man said without raising his head, "Say hello to her for me." Although she was confinement, Joe Man did not go out at all. After washing 3, she went to the princess mansion and communicated with Mingda about postpartum repair. When the child is not very bothersome, the two are actively losing weight and repairing. After that, she would visit Mingda every 2 or 3 days, and usually let the palace maids and maids pass the word, so they didn't miss each other at all. Bai Erlang waved his hand and was about to leave, when he saw a lot of words on her hand. He looked curiously, "What is this?" He glanced at it and found that he didn't understand. "Joe Mandeo, I found a medical book for the treatment of yang deficiency and heart failure, but you don't understand it, so don't join in the fun." Bai Erlang didn't look at it, and asked, "Is it for Uncle Shi's son?" Joe Man nodded. "They should have received the prescription and acupuncture I sent back, so I don't know what the effect will be." She sighed, "The patient is too far away, and I haven't checked it myself, so be careful about medication and needles." Bai Erlang scratched his head and simply said, "Then let Uncle Shi send the child over." "Joe Man, this is a long trip. From Lujian County to Qingzhou, it's too far and it's dangerous. First, I don't know if their family is willing to come here. Second, they can't guarantee their safety all the way." At this time, people in Lujian County did receive Joe Man's letter, and they even used the prescription and needle a few days earlier. 3 days after Joe Mansi gave birth, her family wanted to send a letter to the capital, and Mingda also wanted to send a letter to the palace, so she simply wrote down the prescription and the needle and sent it out together. When the letter arrived in the capital, Joe Dallin asked someone to send the letter back, and by the way, he reported to Thursday Lang, who had already returned, that Joe Manping gave birth to a daughter. After receiving the letter, Manager Zheng discussed the prescription and acupuncture with the doctor in the pharmacy, and finally tried it. Not to mention, the effect was much better than his previous prescription. And the cost is much less, and the precious medicinal materials used are much less. Shi Xiaolang took the medicine for a few days and got an injection every other day, and now he can walk on the ground. But shopkeeper Zheng felt the pulse, and although it improved a little, it is not enough to rely on this medicine and needle to cure. I am afraid that long-term medication and acupuncture have to be taken, which is not much better than before. He sighed and said, "It would be great if Imperial Physician Zhou was here. She personally asked the doctor to prescribe the prescription, and the effect would definitely be better. Maybe there is really a solution." Madame Shi's eyes lit up and then dimmed, wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes, and said, "I heard that Zhou Shenai was an official in a faraway place and gave birth to a child again, so he will definitely not return to his hometown." Uncle Shi lowered his eyes and thought for a while, then raised his head and said, "Then let's go find her." "What?" Madame Shi's heart jumped violently. She was a little scared, but more nervous. "No, not okay. Where is Qingzhou? I heard from Master Zhou that it is far, far away." Uncle Shi has never been timid, so he made up his mind and turned his head to ask Manager Zheng, "Can Xiaolang's body travel far?" Manager Zheng hesitated for a moment and then said, "It's okay to be careful, It's okay to go to the doctor, Joe, even if she can't cure the disease, it will be better than dragging it out like this, maybe it will make Xiao Lang live like a normal person. He said, there is a beloved son of Lord Yin in the capital. I heard that he was frail since he was a child, and was judged by the imperial doctor in the imperial hospital that he could not live to the crown. And it looks like ordinary people. There is a big difference between good and bad medicine. Shopkeeper Zheng had to admit this. A doctor with poor medical skills could not kill people with ginseng, while a doctor with good medical skills could save people with a handful of soil. So he always felt that everything was possible when he met a doctor with good medical skills. With the words of Manager Zheng, Uncle Shi was more confident, but Madam Shi was very frightened and hesitated. What if Xiao Lang can't bear the fatigue of the journey? And it's too far, we are unfamiliar in life. Shi Xiao Lang, who had been sitting on the stool silently basking in the sun, suddenly said, Mother, let's go. This. Uncle Shi has waved his hand and said, it's settled like this, you go and pack your luggage, and I'll find someone. Uncle Shi went to find Zhou Lizhong, and through him met Zhou Lizhong, who was collecting tea everywhere. Going to Qingzhou, Thursday Lang touched his chin, remembering what Zhou Lijun had said recently when he urged him to go to Qingzhou, mainly because she wanted to see the seaport in Qingzhou. The caravan that went to the grassland, now that the three sons and the others are familiar with each other, in fact, he can try to let them go on their own. Chu Youlang rolled his eyes and asked Uncle Shi, if we go to Qingzhou, we can't go empty-handed. That place is near the sea, you think we should bring something over there? Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3142. Uncle Shi was stunned for a moment and then said, our fabrics in Shu, especially Shu brocade, will not worry about being sold no matter where they are. Because he gambled too hard back then, he planned to change his mind and go out to run a business. The first thing he did was the fabric business. Once a year, as long as he could come back safely, he would make a profit. Then it has to be muslin for the last time, right? Of course, said Uncle Shi, the better the fabric is, the more precious it is outside, and before that, how much would you sell a batch of ordinary fabric and muslin? But if you sell satin brocade, the price of one piece is worth it. The muslin on your cart. But the cost is also high. Chu Youlang sighed, it's hard to have no way out. He still has some money. Although the money he brought back is not much, there are still the second and third brothers here. We will embezzle their private money first. The capital will be taken out from the public and returned to them. Uncle Shi said immediately, I have a way. Thursday Lang's eyes lit up, and immediately reached out to put his hand on his shoulder. The two brothers said as if, good brother, don't worry, I will let Xiao Lang take a comfortable car at that time. The mule is calm, let the mule pull it. The car is ready, I must not wrong him. Uncle Shi breathed out a breath and smiled, and also put on Shiro's shoulders, and the two brothers said, I'm relieved if I say this, let's go out for a drink, and take you to meet a few people by the way. The Shi family used to be one of the richest families in Lujiang County. Apart from the Loki Bai family, it was the Shi family and the Luo family. The Bai family moved in later. They didn't settle in Lujiang County for a long time. Unlike the Shi family, they were born and raised here and have always been here. Therefore, Uncle Shi knows a lot of people, and there are more people who know Uncle Shi. Although he has a bad reputation now, many people are avoiding him, but they are afraid of being implicated by him. But if they come to do a profitable business, there are still many people who are willing to greet him with a smile. They don't have any real enmity with Uncle Shi, nor do they have any enmity with Jian. But there are not many silk and silk brocades in Lujiang County, so Uncle Shi said to him, if you want to talk about shoe brocade, you still have to go to Yizhu City. I also know a few shopkeepers there. Look at their muslin and satin, and go to Yizhu City tomorrow. Thursday Lang nodded again and again, indicating that there is no problem. When they left, shoulder to shoulder, Madam Shi hurriedly went to find her son. Xiao Lang, it's too dangerous to travel far. Mother, I think the new medicine is really better. If Zhou Shenai sees me in person, will the prescribed medicine be more symptomatic, he said, and I don't want him to stay in Lujiang County anymore. He stays here, maybe he will gamble again. Why don't he leave here and go to a place without his friends? Shi Xiaolang flashed hatred in his eyes, clenching his fists and said, you don't mean that people have been poking their brains outside these days? Is anyone else coming to him for a drink? He can hold back from gambling now, but what about tomorrow, the day after tomorrow? Shi Xiaolang said, when he gets to live here and gets to know Master Zhou, I'm afraid he will ask him for money to gamble. It's not that such a thing never happened. As soon as this was mentioned, Mrs. Shi no longer objected. She was really frightened by Uncle Shi's gambling addiction. Uncle Shi brought Shiro Lang to know a lot of shopkeepers and owners of Buzwang, and bought a batch of goods. Really, the value is very high. Just a few boxes of satin and brocade are more expensive than his few carts of tea, but it hurts him to death. The Shi family has also packed up. Shi Xiaolang and his mother have a car. The car has been changed. There are only 2 seats in the front and left. Will go a lot less bumpy. Shi Xiaolang lay down for a while, and the driver's driving skills were also good, so he didn't feel uncomfortable. He was swaying, and he soon fell asleep. They did not go directly to Qingzhou City, but to the capital first. Thursday Lang handed over the caravan heading north to Sanzi, and after instructing him again and again, he only brought 2 veterans, and the rest were all recruited from the village this time. Everyone brought a batch of porcelain, fabrics, and ointments. Go to Qingzhou. Zhou Lijun sent the person to the gate of the city, and told him, you must take a closer look at the pier. If it is good, I will divide the business later. On Thursday, Lang responded and warned her, let Mingxiu take care of the 3rd son, this is the first time that kid is on his own. Zhou Lijun also responded. Then Thursday Lang took the caravan to Qingzhou. When they arrived in Qingzhou, they found that there were quite a lot of caravans on the road. When they entered the city, they waited in line for a long time before entering. Thursday Lang did not stop in Qingzhou City, and went directly to Bihai County after asking someone. Then he discovered that there were only a lot of caravans going to Bihai County, and some of them came from other official roads. Sitting on the donkey cart, Shu Lang looked left and right. Relying on the width of the road and no one on the opposite side, he asked the driver to drive the car up and talk to the person in the truck in front. Brother, are you also going to Bihai County? Yeah, the other party heard that he didn't have a Qingzhou accent, and asked with a smile, is this your first time, brother? Thursday Lang smiled and said, yeah, I heard that there is a new wharf in Bihai County, come here to see and see. The man turned his head and glanced back. In fact, it was clear at a glance whose team was in the car. The guards always guarded the cars. He could see at a glance that the 5 cars belonged to the young people in front of him. This was not large, but it was also very important. Not too young, he was more polite and smiled, yes, it was built by the newly arrived county magistrate. Now the new ship is going to sea. From there, it will be free to enter and leave the sea for a period of time. Many people go to try it out. What kind of goods does AncientChina take? Thursday Lang smiled, some fabrics and china. Among the things that go in and out of the sea, these 2 things are the most common, so the other party is no longer interested, and said with a smile, good business, I wish AncientChina a big sale. Congrats on returning on Thursday. Let the driver slow down the speed of the car and return to the queue. He leaned back, leaned on the goods behind him, and swayed one leg and said, they are all going to Bihai County, we just follow them, no need to run around and ask for directions. Don't think that you can go unscrupulously by taking the official road. There are also forks in the road, and there are no official roads in some places, so there are more small roads. At this time, in order not to get lost, you need to constantly ask people for directions. I have to find a few more people to ask, because some people do not know the way, just because they are warm-hearted, regardless of whether they know each other or not, they are warm-hearted. Shiro, who has been pitted countless times on the road, has now summed up a set of skills and experience in asking for directions. The strong man walking beside the car asked happily, "Shiro, are you going to Bihai County?" "Yes," Manbao said, that Bihai County is not far from Qingzhou City, and we should be able to enter the city before the city gate closes. Then we can see Manbao. See you tomorrow, good night. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3143. Definitely, Shu Youlang thought about it and felt that something was wrong. "Sanzu, why do you keep asking Manbao?" "My mother asked me to touch Manbao to feel happy," he said. She said, "Manbao Gu is the reincarnation of a fairy, and she is the most fortunate person in our village. After touching her, I will talk to her later. You can go out smoothly and safely." Thursday Lang, "It makes sense, but you call her aunt, should you call me fourth uncle?" Sanzu ignored him. He was several years older than Shiro, so it was fine to call in front of him, but he didn't want to call in private. Mainly their uncle-nephew relationship has been challenged. When his son was crawling all over the ground, Shiro was still a child king and was leading people around climbing trees and digging bird nests. The most important thing is that Shizalang bullied his son in the past, and he used a stick to shove him. There are many people in the village who are younger and older. Some of them are good, and those who are not good. That would not respect the old and love the young. Thursday Lang is the king of children, and Wednesday Zhu is the youngest son of the village chief, and he has been favored since childhood. Naturally, he is not convinced that Thursday Lang is an uncle. So even though the relationship between the two is good now, unless they are outside in front of outsiders, Wednesday Zhu never calls him Uncle Shiro. The two of them fought each other, and by the time they got out of Bihai County, the caravan had already lined up for a long distance. Thursday Lang stood up and looked forward and backward, then glanced at the sunset on the horizon, a little worried. "There are so many people, you won't be able to get in, right?" The caravan guy in the queue next door heard it and interjected, "No, as long as it is in the queue, it is time to close the city gate, and the county government will check it and let it go." "Yeah, it was dark when we came last time, because there were still a few caravans ahead that didn't enter, and we were in the back. The officers and soldiers who guarded the city also checked the goods for us and released them. One of the reasons why they are willing to come to Bihai County is that it is more flexible and more convenient than Leizhu. Moreover, most of them who come from the north and the west have to go through Qingzhou first. If the cost of going to sea from Qingzhou is lower, they are naturally willing to go from Qingzhou." Thursday Lang's eyes flashed slightly, and he thanked them with a smile, but he was not in a hurry, so he leaned on the car and waited to enter the city, while checking the size and cargo of other teams. The speed of their entry into the city was not slow, but when it was their turn, the last ray of sunset had disappeared, and the figures in front of them were blurred. "The inn, the cheapest inn in Bihai County, brother, do you want to stay?" There were also half-old children who stopped them and asked, "Can I have a meal? Can I have a meal? There is hot water in the inn." Thursday Lang swept around, and quickly pointed to a few half-old children in ragged clothes squeezed out of the crowd. "You guys, come here." Those children's eyes lit up and immediately squeezed forward. Thursday Lang glanced at them and asked, "How much does it cost to lead the way?" "Wuvan, you can go wherever you want tonight, sir, and we can guide you," the child said happily and lively. "There is no place in Bihai County that we don't know about." Thursday Lang smiled and asked, "Is it 5 yen per person, Or are you 2 in total? 5 texts in total. Thursday Lang waved at the back and said with a smile, let's go. 2 out of several children came out to guide them, and the rest continued to stay to attract guests. When their convoys all came out, Thursday Lang asked, where is the station? When the child heard this, he immediately persuaded, the price of the inn is expensive, and the food is not very tasty. You may also meet an official, and you have to salute when you go out and enter. It is better to stay in another inn, or rent someone else. The yard is convenient and less expensive. After thinking about it, Thursday Lang asked, which inn do you think is better? The child smiled and said, I know that there is a good home Yunlei Inn. It opened new this year, the place is new, the bed is new, it is very clean, and it is cheap. I will take you there. Otherwise, some people in the city will leave their homes idle. The yard can be rented for 1 month, 10 days, or even 5 or 3 days, and it is not expensive, and there is also a yard for storing goods. However, few people will choose the latter one, because Bihai County is only a county they pass through, and their ultimate goal is Longqi Wharf. If it wasn't for the late entry into the city, they would at most go to Longqi with a meal in the city, and would not stay overnight at all. Therefore, the most recently opened in Bihai County is the restaurant, but the inn is the second. Zhou Lang thought about it and said, then let's rent a yard. How did you rent the yard? The child was taken aback and asked, are you going to rent for 3 days or 5 days? He hesitated before saying, the yard will be rented for at least 3 days. In fact, in terms of price, the price of the yard for 3 days is cheaper than that of the inn for 3 days, but if you only stay for 1 night, then there is no need to covet that cheap. Because the price of the yard for 3 days is definitely much more expensive than that of the inn for 1 day. So the yard here is not very easy to rent. Thursday Lang thought about it and felt that he should stay in Bihai County for a long time. It is definitely not suitable for so many of them to live in Manbeo, so he said, you can talk about the price first, I will consider renting it. A few days. The child is at a loss. Isn't renting a few days according to their own itinerary? Why does it sound like it's going to be based on the price they set? However, he answered quickly, obviously familiar with it all. When Thursday Lang heard this, he rented a small courtyard with 2 entrances, only 800 yuan a month, and immediately said, then let's rent it for a month, which courtyard is closer to the county government and bigger, take us to see it. When the child heard this, he happily responded, good. Then the 2 children discussed it, one continued to lead the way for Shiro and the others, and the other ran away to find the boss. So when they got there, they saw a middle-aged man holding a lantern and leading a child standing at the door. As soon as they saw them, they greeted them and asked with a smile, how many of you are going to stay? Yes, said Thursday Lang looking at the open door behind him and asked, is this the yard you want to rent? Yes, you can go in and have a look. The beds in the rooms are clean, and I let my family clean them every day. Thursday Lang brought a few people in to see it. Seeing that the yard was okay and they were able to put down their car, he asked, where do you live? He pointed in one direction and said, I live on another street, this yard belongs to my brother, he is now making a living in Qingzhou City, this yard is empty, but he feels that this is ancestral land and it is not easy to sell, so just pack up and rent it out to supplement some households. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3144. They can all be rented to merchants, and obviously they won't sell it because of their ancestral land, and they definitely won't be able to sell it. Chu Hulang complained in his heart, and he was satisfied after seeing the various rooms, so he nodded and said, okay, that's it. By the way, where is the county office? The landlord was stunned for a moment and then immediately said, at the other end, don't worry, we will definitely not deceive people. I thought that Thursalang was worried, so he ordered the county government to threaten them. On Thursday, Lang smiled and did not explain. He paid half a month's rent first, took the key with the landlord and stayed there temporarily, and the remaining half-month will be paid after the contract is signed tomorrow. The landlord happily agreed. It has been nearly 3 months since his house was cleaned up, and he has only rented it out twice, each time for only 3 days, which is the longest time. As soon as he went out, he picked out 40 when to give to the 2 children, patted their heads and said, next time there are guests who will come to me, don't worry, I won't treat you badly. He said, isn't it better to introduce guests to us than to make money by introducing guests to those inns? The child happily responded, stuffed the money into his arms, and then waited outside to listen to Shiro's orders. Thursday Lang quickly brought a few people out, and 2 children said, let us go to the county office. As soon as the 2 children stayed there, they didn't receive many guests, but he was the first one who had to look for the county government as soon as he entered the city. So the 2 of them hesitated for a while and then persuaded carefully, Your Honor, it's getting dark now, and the county government doesn't open the door. Thursday Lang patted him on the head, let's lead the way if you lead the way, so much nonsense. The 2 could only lead them to the county office. At this time, there were still some stalls on the road in front of the county office. There were lanterns hanging on the stalls. Some diners were eating. Not far away was the bulletin wall of the county office, and further ahead was the county office, except for the 2 lanterns hanging at the door. Except for the little spot in front of the door, the rest is dark. The 2 children stopped and said, well, that's the county office, I just said, the county office doesn't open the door now. Thursday Lang asked, where is the door to the backyard? The 2 children let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, it turns out that the noble is here to give gifts. They said, our county magistrate does not accept gifts from business travelers, and they will be withdrawn if they are sent. Thursday Lang nodded and asked, where is the door to the backyard? The 2 children could only smear and lead the way. They entered an alley, walked a dozen steps and said, this is it. On Thursday, let someone knock on the door. The concierge in the door heard the movement as early as when people walked into the alley, so he opened the door as soon as he knocked on the door, first glanced at the person who knocked on the door, and when he realized that he didn't know him, he said, the master has stopped, who are you, what's the matter? Thursday Lang stepped forward, looked at the other party for a while, and called out, Lu Bie. Lu Bie looked up, and immediately the half-opened door opened, and exclaimed in surprise, fourth uncle. He immediately came out and let people in, when are you coming, why don't you let people tell me, the little ones are ready to meet you. He shouted at the door again, come on, the fourth uncle is here. The quiet county magistrate's mansion immediately became lively. Zhou Man and Bai Shan were the first to run out. They were pleasantly surprised when they saw Thursday, fourth brother. Thursday Lang also laughed and rushed forward to take a closer look at her. Oh, didn't you say you gave birth to a child, why hasn't your appearance changed at all? Really? Bai Shan was also very surprised that Thursday Lang would come, glanced at the people behind him, saw the villagers of Qilai village, and asked, fourth brother, how many people did you bring? No, a caravan, I rented a yard outside for them to rest. Zhou Man, when did you enter the city? Even the yard is rented. Oh, yes, we have to give them something to eat, said Thursday Lang. This time we have brought a lot of good stuff, and we have to be watched all the time. Bai Shan summoned a servant and ordered, go and make arrangements. There are 15 people in that yard, said Thursday Lang. The next person should be down, and prepare according to this number. The 2 children who led them over were stunned and stood outside the door for a while without reacting. As soon as the concierge looked at them, he knew that it was the group of brokers who pulled people at the city gate. He touched a handful of copper coins and asked, "How much?" Thursel Lang finally remembered the two children, and asked Sanzu to give them the money. "Well, you have a good way to lead." When the two children saw that they gave 10 pennies, which was more than double the price, they immediately bowed down happily. They took a big order tonight and earned 50 cents. Back in the main room, MRSGN came out to see Shizu Lang, greeted Sanzu and others, and said, "I'll go to the kitchen to cook you some food." Thursday Lang, sister-in-law, just do whatever you want. Xiao Qian responded and went to serve them a few bowls of noodles. Bai Shan asked, "Are you here for the Longqi wharf?" "Fourth brother, can you spare your hands to do business here?" Zhou Man asked, "Did Lejun let you come here?" Chu Hulang didn't hide it, and said directly, "I handed over the business road to the grassland to the third son. That boy is clever, he has been with me for so many years, and now he is tall and big, and can be on his own, so I came here. Have a look." In fact, Shu Yulang was also a little timid in his heart. After all, it was a new place and a new business route, but he was always bold. Besides, as long as he thought that there were Man Bao and Bai Shan here, his heart would settle down. Bai Shan smiled and said, "Man Bao has set up a shop for you in Longqi, and it's almost finished now. I'll have someone show you in 2 days. Don't worry, the business on the sea route is more profitable than the land route." "It's more, but it's also more dangerous." "What's the danger?" Thuro asked. "Wind and waves, and pirates." Bai Shan paused and said, "Other than that, it's just sick. Fourth brother, don't you know you're seasick?" Thursday Lang waved his hand and said confidently, "I'm not seasick. Do you think I'll get seasick? You guys used to sit on the bamboo rafts I rode when you were young." "Bai Shan, not that ship." "Aren't they all ships?" "Joe Mandeo, forget it, take him to Longqi another day, and let the fisherman take him out for a walk to know if he is dizzy or not, but that time is short, and if you don't get dizzy on a fishing boat, it doesn't mean you won't get dizzy on a sea boat, anyway. I'll prepare some medicine for you in due course." Joe Man reached out and patted his shoulder, and said seriously, "Fourth brother, I believe in you." Thursday Lang always felt that this was not a good thing, looked around and asked, "Where's the child?" "I'll take a look at the child. As an uncle, he hasn't seen his niece yet." Julan went to pick up the sleeping little lady. Thursday Lang, Jojo Zhu and the others all came together to look, exclaimed, "It looks a lot like Aunt Man Bao. I feel more like Uncle Man Bao. This child is really white. Go, go, you're all sweaty, don't wake up the child." Thursday Lang pushed them away, he looked at them carefully, and was very satisfied. "This child looks like our old Joe's child, definitely clever." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3145. Joe Man was full after eating and drinking, and went to wash up and change into new clothes. Then he told Joe Man about Uncle Shi's family. "They live in the yard we rented, and I will ask them to see you at the medical office tomorrow." Joe Man nodded and asked, "Are they going to live here for a long time?" "Yeah, the disease has to be cured," said Thursday Lang. "They sold all their properties in Lujian County. If you want me to say, it's not bad to live in Qingzhou directly. Lujian County has no land and no house, and it's just a matter of going back. It's just a matter of provocation." Bai Shan asked, "Is Uncle Shi still gambling?" After thinking about it, Thursday Lang shook his head. "Don't gamble, I've been very honest along the way. It's been a month since we met, and I haven't seen him gamble again. He always heard people say that gambling is addictive, but before he had time to become addicted, his dreams were shattered and his butt was smashed, and he no longer had a good impression of gambling. He felt that he quit doing it for a month. But Bai Shan knows that people who are addicted to this thing, let alone a month, is a year, or even 10 years. But Uncle Shi is an outsider in the end, he can't control too much, he only said, he can stay here, I will handle everything fairly, and I have cleaned up the casinos in Bihai County. I'm not sympathetic. Thursday Lang was silent for a while, then lowered his voice and said, I want to take him with me. Zhou Man was surprised, going to see. Zhou Hulang nodded and said to the two of them, Uncle Shi can read, and his eyesight is good. To be honest, he has nothing wrong with him except for always losing face and gambling. This time, Thursday, Lang and Uncle Shi walked all the way, and felt that as long as he didn't want to gamble, his mind was still normal, and he was much more shrewd and better-sighted than him. Bai Shan raised his eyebrows slightly, looked at Zhou Man and said, Fourth brother, just make up your mind. Thursday Lang smiled and said, then you will show his son tomorrow to see if it can be cured. If it can be cured, there is still hope. Then I will ask him to go out and make money together. Uncle Shi's family was very uneasy. If even Zhou Man said it couldn't be cured, then it is estimated that no one could cure the disease. Zhou Man asked them to wait in the corridor first, and after seeing the patients in the queue, he brought Zhenggu over to him, Uncle Shi. Uncle Shi looked at Zhou Man, who grew up, and he almost couldn't see that she was the little girl of the year. He hurriedly saluted, then dragged his son up and said, this is my boy, Zhou, Lord Zhou, you show him. Zhou Man nodded, took them into the consultation room, took his pulse carefully, looked at his tongue coating, and asked about the process and manifestations of the disease. Seeing her frowning and not speaking, Uncle Shi swallowed nervously and asked, Master Zhou, can it be cured? Zhou Man thought for a while and said, it's not easy to get a complete cure. But I can relieve the symptoms so that he can live like a normal person. In the end, he probably doesn't need to take medicine, but he needs to not be too sad and angry. Don't overwork yourself, so you can live a peaceful life. Uncle Shi raised his heart and said excitedly, this is enough, this is enough. Madam Shi also nodded again and again, thinking that was all right. The two looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief, the corners of their eyes wet. Shi Xiaolang was stunned for a long time before he came back to his senses. What does this mean? Can he be cured? In his view, this is almost like a cure. With the exact words given by Zhou Man, Uncle Shi planned to live in Bihai County. After going through Zhou Man's relationship, he wandered around Bihai County, and finally bought a small yard with one entrance for 60 taels in the east of the city. There are 5 rooms, enough for their family of 3, and the yard is not small, and there is a piece of land at the back, about 3 points, where you can grow some fruits and vegetables. He left the remaining 40 taels to his wife and children, and said to them, I made an agreement with Shizuo Lang, I will go to sea with him, and go back and forth to get the wages. If I am lucky and come across good goods, I can also return it. You can earn a little more, you can take this money, and if you count the money, it should be enough for a year. The medicine prescribed by Zhou Man is not very expensive. Acupuncture and moxibustion are free of charge. The monthly cost of taking medicine is about 600 yuan, plus food and drink. Because Shi Xiaolang needs nutrition, he has to eat meat and eggs, but a month or 2 is enough. 40 taels is actually enough for 2 years of living expenses, but there are always surprises, so he counts more. Uncle Shi said to Shi Xiaolang, take the money. Your mother will ask for it when she needs it. I'm not at home. Take care of yourself and your mother. Shi Xiaolang looked up at his father and saw that his spirit was much better than before. The most important thing was that his eyes were clear, not as cloudy as when he was addicted to gambling. He paused slightly and nodded. Uncle Shi continued to instruct, if you encounter something that cannot be solved, you can go to the county government office or the medical office to ask Lord Zhou. We are from the same town, and the two families still have some friendship. She will help you. Shi Xiaolang responded. Uncle Shi was relieved to go to Longqi with Shiro Lang. Longqi has changed a lot, houses are rising from the ground. The streets are spacious and tidy. The shops on the two main streets have basically been built, and there are still many under construction. At this time, there were many business trips in Longqi. Some shops on the street had already opened, but most of them were stalls, especially those selling food, which were basically stalls. Lu Gui, who led the way for them, took Shai Zilang directly to one of the shops, opened the door and said, "Fourth uncle, this is the shop that the lady has set for the Zhou family. It has been built. There is still a place to live, but..." Looking at the empty shop, Shu Youlang said, "I know, there aren't enough rooms. Is there an inn nearby?" "Yes, but there are a lot of business travelers coming here at the moment, and the inns that open the door are full of people, but it doesn't matter. Young Master Tang has a courtyard here. I said hello to young Master Tang at home, and Master Uncle can live there first." Lu Gui it was mainly the one who led Thursday to the shop to see the shop. "Then I turned up the mountain to go to the other courtyard. There is a yard at the side door, which is convenient for entering and exiting, and it is enough for them to live in." Su Lang stood on the hillside when he saw the sea in the distance, and when he heard the sound of the rushing waves, he was surprised. The sea is so big. What? Yeah, according to the lady and the master, the sea in this world is bigger than all the land combined. Thura, liar, right? How could the sea be bigger than the land? Lu Gui also felt that the lady and the master were deceived by the book. After all, what was written in the book was not necessarily true, but they were masters, so he didn't dare to say it, so he could only smile at Thursday Lang. Good night, see you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3146. On Thursday, Lang lived in a different courtyard and had the goods arranged, and then took everyone to see the sea together. Standing on the seashore, the fierce sea breeze was blowing, the waves rushed up and hit the rocks on the shore, and the moment the tide receded, the monstrous wind came from nowhere, and directly blew their hair backwards. It smeared on their faces at once. Thursalang tried his best to pull his hair off his face, and then closed his wide-open mouth. "Hey, is this wind always so strong? How do you go about sailing?" Lu Gui said, "No, it's not that big usually," he said after a pause, "but sometimes there are waves that are bigger than now." When Thursday Lang heard this, he swallowed nervously. "That's going to capsize in the sea." Lu Gui said with a sad face, "It's probably impossible to live." Thura. The sea is definitely more dangerous than the land. There were a few boats parked outside the Longqi wharf. Except for 3 from Leizhu, there were 2 others. I don't know what conditions Bai Shan gave, so they snatched the boats from the Leizhu wharf. The rest are official ships. Lu Gui led Shai Zilang to look at the pier, and then wandered to Haisai, and then whispered to him, "There are 3 official ships, which were transferred by His Royal Highness from Qingzhou to Lord Lang, and they mainly go north to Kangzhou and Pingzhou. If you want to go to the south of the Yangtze River, the 4th uncle has to find a ship from the company." "Is the boat expensive?" "It depends on the goods and people you bring. The price of the place you take will be higher." Lu Gui has come to Longqi from Qingzhou and handed over the shop in Qingzhou to the people below. Although he does not go out for business now, it was intended to use the shop that Bai Shan bought, so I had already inquired about it. He reported the price of each house, the place to go, and the time it took to report to Thursday. Thursalang directly saved the effort of inquiring. In this way, it is indeed cheaper to travel by sea than by land. "No," Lu Gui said with a smile, "not only is it cheaper, but also faster, and the bed also saves money for staying at a hotel on the road. All expenses are counted. It is also in Jiangnan, and the sea route can be more than half cheaper." Lu Gui asked, "Fourth uncle, where do you want to go?" Thursday Lang looked tangled, because of the relationship between Bai Shan and Manbao, it is naturally best to take the official ship, but, I want to go to Jiangnan to see. I heard that Jiangnan is prosperous, and it is second only to the Central Plains. He has seen the prosperity of the Central Plains, but he has not seen Jiangnan. And I heard that the satin and brocade ribbons over there are also different from the ones they use here, and they don't have a sense of style. Lu Gui smiled and said, "What's the matter? If you are fast, you can go in and out twice a year. You can take the company's sea boat first, and then take the official boat later." It was only then that Chu Yulang remembered and asked, "Is the official ship going for the official family's business?" Lu Gui shook his head and smiled and said, "I don't know about this little one, the little one only knows that the official ship has to listen to the dispatch of the master, and the merchants who are eligible to go on the official ship need to be approved by the master in person, but I think the fourth uncle should not have it." Questionable. It's not because of Thura's ability, but because of his natural attributes, they belong together. Shangguan ship's caravan must be his own, otherwise, Bai Shan would rather not make that extra money. So far, Bai Shan has not found any businessmen to cooperate with, but he is not in a hurry. The space on the ship is not empty. They need to ship out a lot of salt. Spring flowers are blooming, and spring is returning to the earth. At this moment, the busy season of spring has begun. It is the time when all regions need to work hard. The next half a year is a time when the salt is consumed. At this time, Jiangnan said without warning to the yamen who came to purchase from all over the country that the Jiangnan salt field was short of revenue and could not provide the salt they needed for the time being. When the news came back to various places, the local yamen were a little anxious. They could only write letters to the procurement officials, asking them to mediate as much as possible, and at the same time, they wrote to the imperial court to impeach the official salt in Jiangnan and the salt administration in Jiangnan. The censor desk read the book and handed it over to Zhang Shisheng, who pressed it down and handed it over to the emperor. The emperor sneered, handed it over to the prince, and said, "Let Bai Shan get out of the boat." Yes. The emperor warned, things must be kept secret, and the wind must not be leaked until the salt arrives. The prince responded and wrote a secret letter to Bai Shan, which he put in a gift for Mingda. The emperor then remembered, "Why haven't Mingda and the concubine come back?" The prince said without changing his face, "The children are only 2 months old, so young, how can they be on the road? I think they should stay in Qingzhou. It is also good to help Bai Shan Zhen to fight the ghosts and snakes." The emperor frowned. As soon as the salt in Bihai County goes out, Bai Shan is afraid that he will become a thorn in the eyes of many people, a thorn in the flesh. What if they are accidentally injured there? The prince thought for a while and said, "Let Lord Yin send some more band troops there? Yin Wei is also there. After all, he is Lord Yin's only son, so he should be quite worried." The emperor thought for a while, and finally sighed, feeling that the child was too old and would fly away from home as soon as his wings became firm. The son is no problem, he has to stay in the vassal, staying in the capital for fear that the courtiers want to gossip more, and now even the daughter can't be retained. The emperor hesitated for a moment, but agreed. However, the prince did not have the power to dispatch the forbidden army, so the emperor had to ask Lord Yin for it himself. The letter was quickly delivered to Bihai County, and Bai Shan, who had been preparing for a while, went to Dajiawa immediately after receiving the letter. Because his daughter-in-law was not around, Zhou Liwei was more sloppy than 3 months ago. He didn't shave his beard, and he looked wild. When he saw his little uncle, he embarrassed to touch his face. Bai Shan twitched the corners of his eyes, feeling that it hurts his eyes too much, and waved, "Go and wash up, let someone start loading the car, and we will leave tomorrow." Zhou Liwei responded immediately. Vehicle after vehicle was towed out, pulled to the warehouse, and put away, where the soldiers themselves loaded the vehicles. When all the four-wheeled carts were full, the soldiers also pushed out a lot of carts, loaded the salt on it and tied it up. In the early morning of the next day, they went out from Jiawa to Longqi in a mighty way. They took the same route as Ding Xiu's conscription last year, which could save a lot of time. There are not many people walking, except for the villagers from a few villages along the way. There are basically no people at the rest of the time. Bai Shan and Nai Kenjun personally escorted the team. The two walked for a day. They deliberately stopped to rest in the middle of the afternoon, and continued to walk after dark. Finally, they reached Longqi in the dark in the early morning. The people on Longqi's side had already received the news and were ready. Seeing the fire coming, Fang Xiancheng brought people to greet him. "Sir, the official ship is already waiting outside." Bai Shan nodded slightly, looked left and right, and asked, "Isn't it shocking?" "No, in the past few months, according to the instructions of the adults, people will listen to the bell to rest, listen to the bell, and the rest of the time, they will walk around at will, and they will be treated as thieves." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3147. Bai Shan nodded, turned sideways, and let the team behind him step forward, exhorting, "Be softer and load everything before dawn." Yes. Everyone carefully transported it to the dock, and then picked it up and loaded it onto the ship. The soldiers on the ship also came down to help. Lu Kenjun, who was escorting the boat, also disembarked to meet Bai Shan and Nai Kenjun. "It's all salt." Bai Shan nodded, "It's all official salt," and then Lao Lu joins the army. Lu Kenjun smiled and said, "Master Bai is polite, we will go all out after we have received the order." Bags of official salt were put on the Kong boat. Zhou Liwei counted with the clerk on the official boat with the notebook. When the boat was full, the two checked the number of each other's numbers and signed them together. "Take a note and get off the boat." "Clerk, General, count them all." Zhou Liwei also said, "Little Ant, Lord Bai, you have counted the humble jobs." Bai Shan nodded slightly, took a look at it, and took out his own seal from his sleeve and put a seal on it. The same is true for Lu Kenjun. The two exchanged, and the official ship was released from the port, and the other official ship came quietly from the other side and slowly stopped. The long-term workers and soldiers who had rested began to carry bags again, and Zhou Liwei encouraged them, "When the packing is finished, we will pay you 5 days' wages." Everyone was more energetic and continued to work hard to carry the bag. With their tireless efforts, all the salt was finally loaded before dawn. The official ship slowly left the port, and Lu Kenjun also boarded the official ship with 2 slips and waved to him from a distance. Bai Shan exhaled, looked back at everyone who was sitting on the ground gasping for breath and said, "Let's go, let's get out of here first." The crowd piled the carts directly onto the ox cart, horse-drawn cart and mule cart, and then you supported me, and I helped you slowly leave the Longqi wharf. After walking some distance, the sky finally started to light up. Bai Shan looked around and felt that no one would come here at this time, so he asked everyone to sit down to rest and eat some dry food. Bai Shan also took out a piece of cake, took a bite, and chewed it for a long time without swallowing it. He looked sadly in the direction of the other courtyard, and he could still vaguely see some roofs and the like from here. Zhou Liwei also looked over and asked, "Is the fourth uncle still there?" Well, he decided to go to Jiangnan. The merchant ships are still picking up passengers, so he hasn't left yet. Thursday Lang was still sleeping soundly in the other courtyard, unaware that Bai Shan and Zhou Liwei were coming and going. Most people at Longqi Wharf didn't notice it. When the day was about to dawn, the bell rang. The long-term workers who heard the bell got up one after another, and those who were going to work early like them also got up quickly. "Come alive." When Mr. Kui heard the voice of the servant going upstairs, he looked away from the sea and turned back to put on his clothes. The servant knocked on the door, and after getting permission, he brought water in, and after serving him, he said, "Master, there was some movement at the pier in the middle of the night, and the young man looked at it from a distance, as if the officers and soldiers were moving something on the official ship. Things, I just went to the pier to take a look, and it seems that 2 official ships parked outside have gone." Master Kui wiped his hands clean, handed him the handkerchief, and asked blankly, "Why are you asking about this?" The servant frowned and said, "Isn't this kid worried that someone will harm the master?" Master Kui said, "The entire Longqi is under Bai Shan's control. We don't have to worry about it, we just need to do a good job of building the wharf." He cut off the servant's words and said, "Go prepare the horse, and I'll go check the newly arrived stone material later." The servant swallowed the words that came to his mouth, bowed in response, and stepped back. Others are not as indifferent as Mr. Kui, especially the business trips that have not left in Longqi. "You really listened, is there really any movement?" "Yes, the master knows my ears, and he is the most well informed. There were many chariots, horses, and people. There are fewer boats on the dock. 2 official ships are missing. I have been wondering for a long time, that official ship is used for war, why is it stopped here at this time? I thought there were bandits at sea, and Lord Bai invited them to escort the merchant ship, but now it seems that it is not. Anyone who noticed it wondered in private, what is luck? It's so quiet." Chu Youlang didn't know anything about this at first. He brought Uncle Shi and Sanzu down for breakfast. When he was eating buns, he heard someone come and ask the stall owner, "Are there any strangers in Longqi today? Are there enough buns to sell?" The stall owner smiled and said, "The spectator said, in Longqi, apart from Changgong and people from our 2 villages, there are so many business trips here, how can the small ones recognize them? What I'm asking is, are there people who suddenly have a lot of eyesight this morning?" No, the stall owner thought about it and said, "It seems that 2 small caravans came yesterday." Convenience said, "5 buns, take them away." After the people left, Shu Youlang raised his head and glanced at the person who left, then turned to ask Uncle Shi, "Do you think it's strange?" Uncle Shi thought for a while and said, "It's like inquiring about news." Sanzu took a sip of the soup and said indifferently, "Isn't it just a few words of gossip?" Thursday Lang picked up the bun and stuffed it into his mouth. "You don't talk much." He and Uncle Shi said, "Hurry up and eat, we'll go to Lugui when we're done. This dragon pond was built by Bai Shan with great effort, so we can't make trouble." Lugui didn't know that Bai Shan and the others had been here last night. Bai Shan has always been clear about public and private matters, so he only told Fang Xiancheng. "Fourth uncle, don't worry, I'll go to Fang Xiancheng in a moment to report." Lugui was not worried about this, but smiled, "The people here are all of our lord, and the yamen and officials are our lord. I personally selected and sent here, and the long-term workers are also recruited by the master. Although there are many business trips here and the personnel are complicated, the entire Longqi is under the control of the master." Thursday Suro, "Then I'm relieved." Lugui asked, "Fourth uncle, when will your merchant ship leave?" Chu Hulang pouted and said, "I said that I want to choose an auspicious day to leave. I think they still have vacancies, so they have to wait for someone." Lugui smiled and said, "You really have to choose a day. You want the sailors to see the weather. It's better to set off when the wind is smooth. That's safe and fast." They just said that the merchant ship's man immediately came up and informed them, "Tomorrow is a good day, and you can leave." In fact, the 2 caravans that arrived yesterday were pulled by their company. The ship was full, and tomorrow will be a good day, so they decided to set off tomorrow. When Thursday Lang heard this, he was nervous and happy. He turned his head and said to Lugui, "Then we'll go back and prepare. When you go back, tell Man Bao that I'm going to see." "Yes." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3148. When Thursday Lang returned, he had people pack up, and the next day, he arrived at the dock at the appointed time, and some coolies came forward to do the work. On Thursday, Lang chose a few people to help carry things together. Because it was the first time to go out to sea, although Thursday Lang didn't bring many things with him, none of the people were left behind. Unlike other caravans, when he got here, he would leave some guys behind and only bring a few on board. Sanzu and the others were also very nervous. After they carried all their things, they handed over the carriage and horse to Lugui to take back, and then they asked in a low voice, Four uncles, shall we all go? Thura, you don't want to go. No, I don't think the other caravans bring many people. We bring so many people, it looks so fierce, it looks like we are going to fight. Thursday Lang glanced at him and said, Isn't this very good? It's not easy to bully when you look at it, and it just so happens that no one dares to bully us. When the people on the boat saw that so many of them brought such a small amount of cargo, they guessed that they were going to sea for the first time. After a closer look, they didn't understand anything. I couldn't stop laughing, it was the first time I went out to sea. However, Thursday Lang was not cowardly. He took a look at the precautions for the ship he recorded and said, Find a boatman and ask where our cabin is. What Thursday Lang said was right, although they looked like they were going to sea for the first time, but because of their large number, no one dared to bully them. He entered his cabin, poured a cup of tea for Uncle Shi, and said, We have few people, so people can't tell that we are going to sea for the first time. So there are still more people. Uncle Shi took a sip and said, Just be happy if you have money. On Thursday, Lang touched a bag tied to his arm. It was given to him by Joe Man. It contained gold and some money he brought from the capital. When he arrived in Jiangnan, if he came across something good, he could buy more. Earn money again and again. Thinking about it this way, Shuyu Lang felt relieved, not so distressed. Bai Shan and Zhou Liwei brought people back to Jiawa, and sorted out the rest of the salt. Bai Shan handed the way to Nikanjun, Get someone to send it out. Nikanjun responded, picked 50 soldiers and left by land with the rest of the salt. They want to send the salt to the Central Plains. In this way, the land and sea are separated, and any place that needs to rely on the official salt in the south of the Yangtze River can be replenished. The people who purchased from the local government offices still stayed in Jiangnan and tried their best to buy some salt, but although they let go, the price was very high. The money wasn't theirs either. The purchasing official hesitated for a while and didn't agree. He wrote a letter to send it back and asked his boss before making plans. Such expensive salt, even if it doesn't make money, the people can't afford it even if it is given to the common people. In the end, whose responsibility is this? So they didn't dare to place an order. Their letter was sent back from Jiangnan. Although the distance was long, the delivery speed was faster than that of escorting Guanyin. Just when the officials in various places were angrily cursing the family of officials in Jiangnan in private, someone came to report, Sir, there is Qingzhou salt transport. The people from the division came over and said that they were trading official salt on the orders of the imperial court. The blue-faced inspector stood up immediately, Really? Where is the person? I just entered the city, and I am living in the inn at this time. Come on, let's take a look. The prefect took 2 steps and felt that something was wrong, then stopped, Go and invite people over and take a closer look at how much salt they brought. A full 15 cars. The inspector was very happy to meet people in the hall. After reading the other party's guide and official posts, the inspector knew their origins. Bihai County, Qingzhou, Baishan. The corners of the prefect's mouth were slightly raised, and a sneer flashed on his face. No one in the world knew that Baishan was the prince's companion, and he was the prince's confidant just like his wife. Humph, Jiangnan wanted to use them as knives, but they were already meat on the chopping board, and the prince's knives had already been prepared. However, how did so much salt Bashan come from? The prefect just thought about it for a while and then decided to ignore it, and said to the soldier who was escorting the official salt, "How much does the official salt cost?" The soldier reported a price. The price was set by Baishan and could not be changed. The prefect shook his head and said, "This can't be done, it's too expensive, it has to be cheaper." Soldier, "Sir, this is the price set by our lord. If your lord thinks it is expensive, then we can only leave and go to the next state." He said, "Before we came, our adults told us that the price should not be a penny more, nor a penny less." He added, "Our adults also said that if some adults think the price is too high, they can send someone to buy official salt in Bihai County, Qingzhou in the next quarter. The price is 10 cents cheaper than the current one." "Inspector, next quarter?" "Yes," the soldier said honestly, "our Lord said that what is delivered now is only for the season, so a state can only buy 3 trucks of salt at most. In the next season, if we are to send salt, we will need to pay for each bucket of salt 5 more when than it is now. If it weren't for His Royal Highness's life, our adults would not have sent it, and now we are short of people in Bihai County." Before the selection, Bai Shan had told Nai to join the army that the leader of the selected team must be honest and loyal. But Bai Shan didn't expect him to be so honest, and he directly told them what he told them in private. The prefect dragged people to grind for a long time, but in the end he couldn't buy another car of salt, let alone the price, but it was really not much, not much. He could only buy 3 cars of salt, and helplessly watched him leave. Some people were very unconvinced. "Sir, what if we just detain the salt truck? It's not like they haven't done this kind of thing before, the things have been deducted for use, who can do what to them? It's not that they didn't pay." The prefect glanced at the other party and said, "This is not an ordinary official salt, do you think it is from the past? I've tasted it. Although this salt is slightly better than the one given by Jiangnan, it's still salt. What's so unusual?" "There's poison in this salt," said the prefect. "The court and Jiangnan are fighting poison. At this time, we are not far from each other. You are still rushing to find trouble, and you are looking for trouble between His Majesty the Prince and the court. Live too long. Then this salt. Call our people back, don't waste it in Jiangnan, since there is salt in Qingzhou, then take it from Qingzhou, which is closer and cheaper than Jiangnan. I want to see, we are all gone, who would want salt from the south of the Yangtze River." However, the governor touched his chin, puzzled, "Where did Qingzhou get so much official salt? I remember that they only had one salt field there, and most of them were only enough for supply and demand in the state." Someone said, "My lord, there was some specious news a few years ago that there was a new method of making salt by the sea, saying that it could be placed in the fields and grow salt just like crops. Inspector, do you believe such nonsense? See you tomorrow. Good night."